Have you ever felt that? The more you try to hold on to something, the easier it slips away. A relationship begins to fall apart. A once stable job suddenly feels unfamiliar. A dream you've chased for years now feels more like a burden than a blessing. And then one day, you let go, not out of despair, but simply because there's no strength left to keep holding on. And out of nowhere, something else shows up, unexpected, gentle, maybe even better. And you wonder, is it true that what's meant for me will come without forcing? But why is letting go so hard? Why do we feel anxious when we can't control everything? Why do we confuse acceptance with giving up? If you've ever asked yourself those questions, then today's video might just be a turning point in your inner journey. Together, we'll explore a world that Buddhist wisdom has illuminated for thousands of years, where letting go isn't about loss. It's about opening the door to real freedom. We'll meet Zen masters with broken teacups, wild horses entering human lives, and crashing waves that can't be stopped each one. A powerful metaphor for how we hold on and how we begin to release. Every section in this video is like a mirror, inviting you to gently look inward. What are you gripping too tightly? What are you chasing that hasn't arrived? What are you exhausting yourself trying to control? And then, softly, we begin the journey toward peace, not by running after anything, but by pausing, breathing, and listening to what life has been whispering all along. Let's walk together into the heart of this teaching, a space where letting go is no longer a fear, but a healing power, and a path home to your truest self. 1. Letting go of control. Letting go isn't abandonment. There's a story simple, but it hits deep every time. A man slips off a cliff. On his way down, he somehow grabs onto a small branch growing out of the rock face. He's dangling there, feet above a dark abyss, arms trembling, the wind howling past his ears. Above him, there's no path back. Below him, it's just darkness. So he starts yelling, screaming, praying, calling out to anyone, anything that might save him. And then, a voice, calm and quiet, comes from above. Let go. The man panics. Let go? Are you crazy? I'll die. So he holds on tighter, fighting against the exhaustion. But eventually his strength gives out. His fingers slip. He falls, only to realize the ground was just a few feet below him. Now that story, while just a metaphor, speaks volumes about the way many of us live. We cling to jobs that no longer feed our soul, to relationships already broken, to images of ourselves that no longer fit, to control over outcomes, over people, over the future. And when someone says, maybe it's time to let go, our instinct is fear. Because to most of us, letting go feels like giving up. It feels like failure, like weakness, like losing something precious. But that's not how the Buddha sees it. In Buddhist teachings, letting go isn't indifference. It isn't irresponsibility. It's not about walking away from life. It's about walking with it. It's about releasing the grip of unconscious control, the need to have everything planned, managed, and guaranteed. Letting go is the first step toward true freedom. It's not running away. It's turning inward. A wise teacher once told his student, "People don't suffer because they have nothing. They suffer because they can't accept they were never meant to hold on to everything forever." Most of our anxiety doesn't come from the world. It comes from our attachment. Attachment to outcomes, to identities, to what we think we must be or achieve. There was once a man successful on the outside. House, career, family, status. But inside, he was drowning. He came to a monastery, exhausted, asking for guidance. He said, "I've done everything right. I've controlled everything I could. But still, nothing feels right anymore. The monk asked, "What are you holding on to the tightest?" The man paused, then whispered, "The image of a perfect father, husband, leader. I don't want to lose that." The monk smiled. "And what has that image already cost you?" Silence. That moment, that crack in the armor, was the beginning of his healing. Because sometimes letting go is the most courageous thing we can do. It means trusting not blindly but deeply, trusting that life continues, even if we're not in control of every step. If you've ever lost sleep over something that might never even happen, you know this feeling. The heart races, the mind spins. You try to predict every outcome, but peace never comes that way. Sometimes peace doesn't arrive with answers, it arrives with surrender. And in a world that glorifies control, letting go is revolutionary. The Buddha once said, "Nothing is truly ours, not even this body." So if nothing is permanent, why keep gripping things we were never meant to own? Letting go means stopping the fight against life's current. It means softening. It means learning when to hold on and when to release. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught, "A mind that lets go is a mind free from suffering." Not because problems disappear, but because the mind stops resisting what is, stops clinging to what was, stops fearing what might be. Imagine you're holding a heavy stone. At first, it's bearable, but the longer you hold it, the more it aches. Relief doesn't come from strength. It comes from finally setting it down. And here's the quiet miracle. Only when your hands are empty can you receive what's truly meant for you. 2. Real compassion begins with the simple act of caring for another. There are moments in life when people don't need a lecture. They don't need an explanation about karma or some profound spiritual truth. They just need someone. Someone who's willing to sit beside them, to listen, without judgment. Sometimes, that's all it takes: a hand on the shoulder, a nod, a quiet gaze that says, "I see you. I know you're hurting." The most powerful acts of compassion don't always come wrapped in grandeur. They often come in the smallest, most human gestures, and sometimes those are the ones that save us. During a meditation retreat in New York, an elderly woman stood up to share. Her voice trembled, tears already welling up before she could begin. She spoke about her husband who had passed away suddenly in an accident. Her children lived far away, and the home that used to echo with laughter had become cold and painfully quiet. But what truly broke her, she said, wasn't the grief, it was the silence. The loneliness of not having anyone to talk to. She whispered, "I don't need anyone to explain karma. I just wish someone would sit with me for 15 minutes a day. Just sit, no need to speak." That single sentence made the entire room fall still. Many sitting around her began to cry, not out of pity, but out of deep recognition. And then a young woman walked up to her, gently placed a hand on her shoulder, and said, "Tonight, I can sit with you. I'll listen." That's it. No noble ideas. No memorized suttas. Just a moment of human presence, and yet it was the most alive expression of the Dharma in that entire hall. In the Karaniya Metta Sutta, the Buddha didn't describe compassion as a vague feeling. He said it's like the love a mother has for her only child. Wholehearted, unconditional, without division, without agenda. Compassion isn't pity. It isn't temporary kindness. It's a conscious choice. It's seeing another human being as part of yourself and stepping forward even when you don't have to. There's an old story. A beggar sat alone on the roadside, tattered, weak with hunger. People hurried past, avoiding his gaze. A monk walked by, stopped, bowed to him with reverence. The beggar blinked in disbelief. "You're bowing to me? I have nothing." The monk smiled. "I'm not bowing because you have something. I'm bowing because you are someone." That moment reminds us, in a world spinning faster each day, where people crave solutions, what we often need more than answers is to be seen, to be heard, to be loved. Real compassion is never theoretical. It's in the pause when you truly listen to a grieving friend. It's in the half of your meal you share with a stranger on the street. It's in the restraint when you choose not to lash out because you sense the other person might be hurting in ways you can't yet understand. Someone once asked, "How do I know if I'm living with compassion?" And the answer was simple. Look at your day. Did anyone feel more at peace just because you were there? Compassion doesn't require you to have a lot or be perfect. It just asks for a heart that listens without labeling, gives without expecting, forgives without holding on to old wounds. Sometimes, compassion is as small as asking the tired cashier how her day is going, or smiling at the mailman on a rainy afternoon, or sending a message to a friend that simply says, "I'm thinking of you today." These tiny acts may feel insignificant, but they can be the thread that pulls someone back from the edge of despair. Because what wounds people most is not being hated. It's feeling invisible. And if, in one ordinary day, you made someone feel seen, you've already walked the path of compassion. Over many years of walking this journey with people from all walks of life, one truth has become unmistakably clear. People may forget the Dharma talk you gave. They may forget which sutta you quoted, but they will never forget how it felt to be loved in your presence. Compassion is not a lofty goal to chase. It's a path, and it's also every small step along the way. A glance, a word, a hug, a choice to be kind again and again. And maybe the deepest form of spiritual practice isn't to reach some faraway enlightenment. It's simply to become the kind of person whose presence makes the world feel a little safer. 3. Mindfulness and the breath, returning to the home within. There's a place we carry with us everywhere. It never closes. It never leaves us. And we don't have to search the world to find it. That place is the breath. When life feels like a mess, when you're not even sure what you feel anymore, what you want, or where you're going, just come back to the breath, because right there, in that simple inhale and exhale, you can find yourself again. During a beginner meditation retreat in California, an older man sat quietly in the back row. He had been a successful attorney, but now, 2 years into retirement, he shared that he often felt lost. He said, "Every morning, I still make my coffee, but no one asks for my opinion anymore. No one needs my advice. And honestly, I don't even know where to go." Then he added, "I spent my whole life becoming someone, and now I don't know who I am." But after 3 days of meditation, he discovered one simple thing: to sit and breathe, not to force it, not to expect anything. Just breathe in, breathe out. And he said, "Strangely, I no longer feel useless. I just feel alive." In Buddhism, mindfulness isn't just a technique, it's a way of being. When we breathe with awareness, we're not just filling our lungs, we're inviting our presence back home. We're no longer stuck in the past, with things we cannot change, nor lost in the future, with things that may never happen. We're simply here, now, and maybe that's the greatest gift meditation offers. A way to come back to the true home of our soul, the present moment. Someone once asked, "How do I meditate when my mind won't stop thinking?" The answer? You don't fight the thoughts. You don't try to push them away. Because thoughts are like clouds in the sky. They come and they go. Your job isn't to chase them away. It's to become the sky itself, spacious enough to let them pass. When you sit still, follow your breath, and simply watch your thoughts float by, you stop being carried away. The thoughts are still there, but you are no longer them. A meditation teacher once said, "There's nothing wrong with thinking. It only becomes a problem when you forget that you're thinking." That moment of awareness, that's mindfulness. And in daily life, you can practice it in the most ordinary ways. When you wash the dishes, know you're washing the dishes. When you walk, feel your feet on the ground. When you eat, just eat. No phone, no rush. Just return fully to what you're doing. No judgment, no hurry. And especially when you breathe, just breathe. No need to do it right. No need to force anything. Just feel the air come in and go out. Like an old friend returning to sit beside you after many years apart. Many people have moved through depression, grief, or crisis, not with some magic solution, but by simply sitting with themselves every single day. They didn't meditate to get better. They meditated to stay awake, to not get lost in the storm. There was once a woman who lost her child in a car accident. For a whole year, she couldn't cry, couldn't sleep. She went to a small monastery and was given only one instruction: sit quietly and breathe with your pain. She practiced 10 minutes each day. And no, the pain didn't vanish, but it stopped drowning her. It became part of the river of life still flowing, but no longer pulling her under. That's the power of mindfulness. It doesn't promise to erase all suffering, but it teaches us how to sit with it in peace. In the Anapanasati Sutta, the Buddha taught, when breathing in long, know that you are breathing in long. When breathing out short, know that you are breathing out short. When the mind feels calm, know that the mind is calm. Just knowing that's enough. That simple knowing is the doorway to awakening. Mindfulness pulls us out of autopilot. You stop being the person who runs all day but doesn't know why they're exhausted. You stop reacting unconsciously, only to regret it later. You become someone who is fully alive right now. And sometimes that alone is enough to heal something deep inside. So if you're feeling lost, if your heart is tangled in things you can't control, if your mind is spinning from everything you have to do, pause just for a minute. Close your eyes. Breathe in. Breathe out. And remember, you're still here. You're alive. And you can always come home to yourself. 4. Nothing comes too early or too late. Everything arrives in its own time. There's a quiet question many of us carry in our hearts. Why hasn't what I've been waiting for arrived yet? Maybe it's a dream job, a soulmate we've prayed for, healing after a deep loss, or just a little peace after months or years of struggling to stay afloat. And sometimes after waiting so long, we begin to doubt ourselves. Did I miss my chance? Am I not good enough? Maybe the universe just forgot about me. But maybe, just maybe, the truth isn't that cruel. In Buddhism, there's a beautiful teaching called dependent origination or interbeing. It reminds us, nothing in life happens too soon or too late. Everything unfolds according to causes and condition according to its own timing. Like a flower. It won't bloom in winter. It won't open before the soil is moist enough, the sun soft enough, and the wind gentle enough. The flower blooms only when all the conditions are just right. And if it hasn't bloomed yet, it's not because the flower is wrong. It's because the season hasn't come. I remember a story shared by a man who spent 5 long years trying to earn a senior position at his company. He worked harder than anyone, took extra courses, stayed late. But every year his name was missing from the promotion list. He felt abandoned by life. But then, in the 6th year, when his hope had gone quiet, was offered the role. Not just the one he had aimed for, but something even higher. And the manager simply said, "You're ready now." Not because he wasn't good enough before, but because life needed him to ripen a little more from the inside. It's the same with meditation. You might sit for a day, 2 days, a week, and still your mind is restless. Your body aches. Your heart feels foggy. But then, one morning, without warning, a stillness shows up, like a calm lake after the wind dies down. Not because of one magical effort, but because all your small, quiet efforts had ripened. Peace doesn't arrive because we demand it. It arrives when we're finally able to receive it. Some people meet true love late in life. Some discover their passion after retirement. And some truly begin to live only after they've already walked through half their years. But late doesn't mean wrong. Sometimes late is the universe's way of saying, you weren't ready to hold this with your whole heart yet. There's a story from Buddhist tradition about a young monk. After several years of intensive training, he grew frustrated. Why haven't I awakened yet? I've practiced with everything I have. His teacher said nothing. Instead, he poured tea into the monk's cup, poured until it overflowed. Tea spilled everywhere. The monk cried out, "Master, it's overflowing!" And the teacher said, "That's you, full of striving, full of expectations, full of urgency. How can awakening pour in when your cup is already full? Only when we clear space inside ourselves can something new begin to enter." People often ask, if everything depends on timing, do I still need to try? Yes, but not to force things. To prepare yourself. Like a farmer, he can't rush a tree to grow, but he can prepare the soil, water the roots, shelter the seed. The tree will bloom in its own season. And all the farmer must do is care and wait and trust. Faith in timing is not blind faith. It's wise acceptance. It's knowing that life doesn't always follow your calendar. And sometimes, the more you cling, the more it slips away. But when you let go, when you keep tending to yourself, when you stay grounded, even without results, then what's meant for you will come. A connection, an opportunity, a transformation, or a quiet peace you stop chasing that arrives like a gift. So remember, if something hasn't come yet, maybe it's just not time. Or maybe you're still becoming the person who can receive it fully. Every soul has its own blooming season, and your job is not to force the flower to open, but to make your roots deep, strong, and steady. Because one day, when the sun is just warm enough, the soil just soft enough, and the winds kind, what you've been waiting for will come. Not too soon, not too late, but right on time. 5. The power of acceptance. Embracing reality without resistance. There comes a moment in life when almost everyone asks, why is this happening to me? A sudden loss, an unexpected illness, a loved one walking away, or a dream that breaks halfway through. And that one question, why me? It seems innocent, but it's often the very thing that causes us the deepest pain, because it doesn't give us answers. It only deepens our resistance. And when we resist life, we don't just lose our peace, we lose our ability to heal. In Buddhism, acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It's not surrendering in hopelessness or swallowing your pain just to survive. Acceptance means stopping the fight against what cannot be changed and learning to live more deeply with what is. As someone once said, we don't suffer because of what happened. We suffer because we can't accept that it did happen. That truth sounds simple, but it cuts to the bone. So much of our suffering doesn't come from reality. It comes from refusing to accept that reality. There was a woman in her 60s who came to a meditation center. She shared that she still hadn't forgiven a friend who betrayed her almost 20 years ago. The pain wasn't about what happened anymore. It was the disbelief that she had been hurt that deeply. And that's where many of us get stuck. Not in the event, but in the refusal to accept that the event already happened. There's a Zen story about a student who complained to his teacher, "I've been hurt. I lost my job. I was betrayed by a friend. Life feels unfair." The teacher pointed to a big rock in the yard. He said, "Go hug that rock and run a lap around the monastery." The student was confused but obeyed. He ran, hugging the heavy stone, sweating and gasping. When he returned, exhausted, he asked, "Master, what was the point of that?" The teacher smiled gently and said, "Life will always have rocks. But choosing to carry them as you suffer, that's up to you. You can put it down, look at it, learn from it, or keep hugging it for the rest of your life." Acceptance is that moment when we finally set the stone down. It doesn't mean we forget. It doesn't mean we approve of what happened. It simply means we face the truth. It happened. I can't change that. When we stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What is this here to teach me?" that's when we begin to grow. Not just older, but wiser, from the inside out. I remember a man who went through a heartbreaking divorce. His wife of 15 years left. Without warning, he spiraled into a dark place and came to meditation as a last resort. But his healing didn't come from advice. It came one quiet morning as he sat in the garden and watched a leaf fall. He said, "The tree doesn't blame the leaf for falling. It just keeps living." He realized, you can't control whether someone stays or goes, but you can decide not to lose yourself in resistance. He began to live again, not by forcing himself to move on, but by accepting that loss is part of life. In the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha taught, suffering is the first truth of life. But he didn't stop there. He showed a path to rise above suffering. And a key step on that path is acceptance. Acceptance that life is impermanent, that people change, that not everything goes the way we wish. And from that acceptance, peace begins to bloom. Not a peace where nothing ever goes wrong, but a deeper peace that comes from seeing clearly. A stillness that comes when we no longer fight. Acceptance doesn't make you weak. In fact, it's the foundation of true strength. Because only when we stop resisting reality can we finally begin to transform it. And from that acceptance, something else starts to grow. Trust. When we no longer cling to control, we start to trust the larger flow of life. We begin to believe that maybe everything that comes and goes has its own purpose. 6. Don't rush to label anything as good or bad, just live fully in the present. There's an old Zen story that every time it's told brings a quiet stillness to the room. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's so real. Long ago, in a small village, there lived an old monk and his son. One day, a wild horse wandered into their stable. The villagers rushed over and said, "What great luck! You're blessed." The old monk simply replied, Good luck or bad luck, who can say? A few weeks later, the son tried riding the wild horse, fell, and broke his leg. Again, the villagers came this time, with sympathy. What terrible misfortune! The monk smiled gently. Good luck or bad luck? Who can say? Months passed. A war broke out. All the young men in the village were drafted except the monk's son, who stayed home because of his injury. This time, everyone exclaimed, "You're so lucky." And once again, the old monk said, "Good luck or bad luck? Who can say?" The story is simple, but it holds a deep truth, one that the Buddha himself taught. Don't be too quick to label life. What seems like misfortune today might be the doorway to something better tomorrow. And what looks like a blessing right now might carry consequences we can't yet see. In real life, we've all had moments where plans fell apart, relationships ended, doors suddenly closed, and the most natural reaction is, why is this bad thing happening to me? But years later, when we look back, many of us say, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be the person I am today. Someone loses a job and discovers a hidden passion. Someone gets betrayed and finally learns self-respect. Someone feels completely lost and then, unexpectedly, finds themselves. At a mindfulness retreat, a woman in her 50s shared this story. She had prayed for years to save her first marriage, but it ended anyway. She was devastated for over a year. Then she found a mindful support group, and through learning to see her life without the lens of right or wrong, lucky or unlucky, she broke down in tears and said, "That divorce taught me how to grow up. I'm no longer dependent. I finally learned how to love myself for the first time in 40 years. Pain is never easy, but when we stop judging it, we often discover that loss carries the seeds of liberation." Human minds tend to label everything, good or bad, win or lose, lucky or unlucky. But in Buddhism, those dualities are just illusion, short-sighted views shaped by ego and fleeting emotion. When something arrives, don't rush to celebrate. When something leaves, don't rush to grieve. Instead, take a breath, step back, ask, where is this trying to take me? What is this trying to teach me? Because events don't define your life. How you meet them does. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, "A mind that is untrained is easily shaken by anything. But the wise person dwells in the present and does not quickly judge what is good or bad." Living without rushing to label things doesn't mean we're numb. It means we're deeply humble. We accept that we don't see the full picture, that we're not meant to know every twist of karma. So instead of rushing, we choose to slow down, to live more deeply and more fully in the present. Once, a young student asked an old monk, "Do you regret anything in life?" The monk smiled and said, "Number. Everything that came and went became my teacher." The student was stunned, and in that moment, he understood. Even the things that make you cry can be the things that open your eyes. Living fully in the present doesn't mean ignoring the future. It means knowing that every seed of tomorrow is planted in the attitude you carry today. So when something happens, instead of rushing to label it as good or bad, try sitting with it, observing it, asking where it's guiding you, and let time like an old, quiet friend reveal that everything had a reason. Sometimes, a door closes just so you can learn how to walk on your own 2 feet. So if you're going through a messy, uncertain, painful season, don't rush to judge it. Don't chase after quick answers. Just breathe, observe, and be present. Because maybe, just maybe, the moment you're trying so hard to escape is the very soil where a new version of you is being born. One that's wiser, stronger, and more grateful for this mysterious life. 7. Nothing lasts forever, and that's what makes life so precious. There are things in life we take for granted simply because they've always been there. A loved one who always sits at the head of the dinner table. A steady job that hums along day after day. A favorite porcelain mug we use every morning for tea. They feel so ordinary that we forget they're also part of the cycle of impermanence. Until one day, that seat at the table is empty. That job is suddenly gone. That cup slips from our hands and shatters on the floor. And we freeze not just from the loss itself, but from the shock that it could all end so quickly. At a meditation retreat in Santa Fe, a man once broke down in tears as he shared about his mother's passing. He said, "I didn't think I was taking her for granted, but I always assumed she'd be there when I came home. When the call came, I didn't cry because I was in pain. I cried because I'd never truly thanked her." That silence in the room afterward wasn't just about the loss of a mother. It was about the countless things each of us has quietly believed would last forever and didn't. In Buddhist teachings, the Buddha said, all conditioned things are impermanent. Conditioned things. That means anything with form, anything created, anything that arises and eventually fades. Nothing, no matter how beautiful, how dear, escapes that truth. And strangely enough, that's what makes life so precious. A porcelain cup isn't precious because it's unbreakable. It's precious because we know it can break. A hug isn't meaningful because it lasts forever. It's meaningful because it might be the last. A family dinner isn't memorable because it's perfect. It's memorable because someone might not be there the next time. Fragility is what awakens gratitude in us. There's a well-known story told in meditation circles. An old monk held up his water glass and said, "To me, this cup is already broken." Everyone looked puzzled. The cup was perfectly fine. He smiled and explained, "Every time I use it, I cherish it, because I know one day it might slip, fall, and shatter. But since I've already accepted its breaking, when it does break, I won't feel sorrow. I'll just smile because I had it and I loved it while it was here." In life, we often cling tightly because we fear loss. But it's not clinging that gives us peace. It's appreciation. A relationship ending isn't always a failure. Someone leaving isn't always a tragedy. A chapter closing isn't always the end of the story. When we understand impermanence, we stop demanding that things stay the same to be considered happy. Instead, happiness becomes about this: being present enough to truly live in the moments we still have. There was a young woman who survived cancer. She said the most terrifying part wasn't the physical pain. It was realizing she'd lived for over a decade, as if life would just keep going forever. After she recovered, she changed completely. "Not because I want to live longer," she said, crying, "but because I no longer want to waste even one more day." In Buddhism, impermanence isn't just a concept. It's an invitation to live deeply. It doesn't teach us to mourn because things will be lost. It teaches us to live honestly because we know they might be. When you know a leaf will eventually fall, you admire it more carefully. When you know a conversation might be the last, you speak more kindly. When you know someone in front of you won't be here forever, you listen more closely. Impermanence doesn't make life cold. It softens us. It opens our hearts at just the right time. Someone once asked, "How do I stop fearing loss?" The answer isn't, "Hold on tighter." The answer is, "Love more fully while it's still here." Because what was truly present, what was genuinely shared, when it's gone, it leaves behind gratitude, and a grateful heart is not afraid. So if you have something precious right now, a loved one, a quiet season of peace, a small joy that lights up your day. Don't let it slip by unnoticed, because nothing lasts forever. And that's exactly why everything we have now is more valuable than we can ever put into words. 8. Meditation isn't just a method, it's a way of living. When we hear the word meditation, most people immediately picture someone sitting cross-legged in a quiet room, eyes gently closed, hands resting in a mudra, maybe with the soft sound of a bell in the background, or the faint scent of incense in the air. And so we assume meditation is something you do early in the morning, or something for monks who live far away from the noise of everyday life. But then someone asks, can I meditate while doing the dishes? Can I meditate in the middle of traffic when everyone's honking their horns? Or, can I meditate while listening to someone I love cry their heart out? And the answer is yes. Not just yes, that's real meditation. Because in the light of Buddhism, meditation isn't just a technique. It's a way of being, a way of living, a life rooted in awareness. An art of returning to the present moment no matter what we're doing. Whether you're cooking dinner or wiping tears from someone you love. A woman once shared during a mindfulness retreat that she could never sit still for more than 5 minutes. I fidget, I get bored, my mind races, then I give up. But then someone asked her, can you wash the dishes and only wash the dishes without thinking of 5 other things? She laughed and said, I've never tried that. And that's where meditation truly begins. Not with sitting still, but with showing up fully for whatever you're doing. When you're washing dishes, just wash the dishes. Not to hurry up, not to daydream, but to really be there with the water, the plate, the sound, the motion. When you walk down an old stone path, and you're not rushing or thinking about where it ends, but you feel each step, notice the breeze, hear the ground under your feet, that is meditation. When a mother holds her child and sings softly, fully present in every breath and lullaby, that is meditation. When a person listens to a coworker share their exhaustion, really listens, without interrupting, judging, or trying to fix it, that's a powerful form of meditation. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha said, when walking, know that you're walking. When standing, know that you're standing. When lying down, know that you're lying down. When thinking, know that you're thinking. Nothing fancy, just know. Know without clinging. Know without rushing to label or fix. That is meditation. That is living mindfulness. People often ask, will meditation make me happier? And the truth is, it depends on how you define happiness. Meditation won't make you richer. It won't erase every challenge in your life. But what it does is make you more real. To live truly is to taste the sweetness of fruit when you eat, not just gulp it down while checking emails. To live truly is to hear the silence between someone's words, not just listen so you can respond. To live truly is to stop being a machine that just reacts and start becoming a human who pauses, reflects, and feels. One practitioner shared this realization. I lived like I was racing against an invisible clock. Even washing my face or turning off the lights, I did everything in a hurry. But after practicing mindfulness in daily life, she said, I started pouring tea more slowly, watching the water, feeling the warmth, and suddenly my heart softened, even though nothing outside had changed. That is meditation. Transformation begins in the ordinary. Meditation doesn't ask you to quit your job, leave your family, or move to a mountain. It just gently invites you back to yourself little by little in the life you already have. Meditation is when you feel cool water on your hands and actually feel it. Meditation is when you pause in the middle of anger and breathe. Meditation is when you're stuck in traffic And instead of fuming, you notice the soft music playing in the background. And then one day, you realize life doesn't need to be more special than it already is. It just needs you, fully present. Some people say, the world moves too fast. I don't have time to meditate. But maybe it's because the world moves so fast that we need meditation more than ever. Meditation is the anchor that keeps us human. When everything else is trying to turn us into a machine, you don't need to be a monk. You don't need to meditate for hours. If you can take just a few moments each day to slow down, to breathe, to come home to yourself, then every action, no matter how small, becomes a sacred spiritual practice. So if today you feel tired, disconnected, like your life is just a series of dry, repeating tasks, try something simple. Drink a glass of water and just drink. No phone, no multitasking, no planning. Just drink. And in that one moment, you're meditating. 9. Even a small act of kindness can brighten someone's darkest day. Some days, people don't need something big. They don't need money. They don't need advice. They don't need someone to come fix their entire life. Sometimes, they just need a glance that says, I see your pain. A quiet nod without judgment. A simple sentence like, I'm here if you need me. And strangely enough, those little things, sometimes they save a person who's silently drowning in darkness. There was a woman who once shared during a Dharma talk that she walked into a small cafe in Seattle one gray, exhausting morning. It was the anniversary of her husband's passing. She didn't tell anyone. She didn't smile. She didn't expect to be noticed. But when the young cashier handed her the coffee, she paused for just a second and said, I don't know why, but I hope today is a gentle day for you. That's all. The woman burst into tears. Not because she was sadder, but because she felt seen honestly and compassionately. Compassion doesn't require us to change the world. It doesn't have to be loud or grand. Sometimes it begins with simply showing up for someone who's hurting. In Buddhism, metta means the sincere wish for others to be happy. Karuna is the tenderness that arises when we see someone suffering. And when metta and karuna come together, it becomes more than just a feeling. It becomes action. Real, present, alive in the moment. There's a story from a monastery in Northern California. A young monk had just arrived. He often felt out of place, overwhelmed, unsure. He didn't speak much. He thought maybe he didn't belong. One day, while doing dishes in the kitchen, he accidentally dropped a plate. The room went silent, but the elder monk beside him simply turned and smiled. No scolding, no lecture, just a smile wide enough to hold the young monk's nervousness. And years later, that same young monk said it was that one smile that made him stay. True kindness doesn't need to be broadcast. It doesn't need to be on social media. It doesn't need applause or recognition. All it needs is a heart willing to listen, and a pair of eyes that don't rush to judge. A well-timed hug, a sincere, "Are you okay?" not as a formality, but with presence, can awaken something in a person. A quiet reminder, you're not completely alone. And sometimes, that matters more than advice or solutions ever could. Someone once asked, I'm not a therapist. I don't teach meditation. I don't even have time to volunteer. So, what good can I possibly do? And the answer is, you can live with kindness, just by the way you move through this world. When you choose not to snap at a waiter who's taking too long, when you speak gently to your loved one instead of reacting, when you meet the eyes of a homeless person and smile instead of looking away, You're doing something this world deeply needs. You're spreading compassion. In a time when everyone's busy, tired, quick to anger, someone who holds on to kindness is someone who's healing, not just others, but themselves too. The Buddha once said, "A kind word can cool 3 months of summer heat." That's the power of compassion. One word, one moment, can ease far more than we realize. Because what others are carrying, we don't always see. And we'll never fully know what might help heal the pain they keep hidden. So if today you feel like you've done nothing meaningful, start with something small. Gently touch someone's shoulder and say, "I understand." Hand a glass of water to someone who's trembling. Send a message to that friend you haven't spoken to in a while. Or simply sit beside someone who's hurting, not to fix them, just to be there. Because sometimes the most healing thing is not the solution. It's presence. Real, kind, aware presence. None of us know what someone else is silently carrying. And none of us know what small act might be their turning point. But if we live with a heart of compassion, if we meet each person with our full attention, then maybe, just maybe, a small act we offer today becomes the light in someone's darkest hour. And if you ever doubt the value of your little acts, remember this: a single drop of water doesn't make the ocean, but the ocean is made of nothing but drops. So even if no one sees it, your kindness matters, and it's quietly shaping a gentler world. 10. When you stop resisting life, you'll realize you feel so much lighter. Have you ever felt like you were fighting the whole world? Fighting a job that no longer brings you joy, but you keep pushing through anyway? Fighting a relationship that's already broken, yet still hoping they'll change? Fighting against aging, illness, circumstances, and even against yourself when life doesn't go your way. It's exhausting, but even scarier than the exhaustion is feeling stuck. Like standing in the middle of a rushing river, straining not to be swept away. But if you've ever quietly watched how water flows, you'll notice something. Water doesn't harden. It doesn't fight the rocks. And it doesn't always choose the easiest path. It just flows. Soft, patient, steady. It wraps around the curves, slips through narrow cracks, embraces the obstacles, and keeps moving. No fuss, no judgment, no resistance, and yet nothing can truly stop it. Maybe that's the way of living we're all secretly looking for. There was a man who came to the monastery once and said, "I'm so tired of trying to control work, trying to make my loved ones care more, trying not to fail. But the harder I try, the more I hurt." The old monk didn't answer right away. He gently led the man to a stream behind the temple. Pointing to the water flowing around a large rock, the monk asked, "What do you see?" The man replied, "The water's blocked. It's not going straight." The monk smiled and said, "It's not blocked. It just doesn't insist on going straight. It embraces the rock, then moves on." We often think that if we could just control everything, then we'd finally be at peace. But that very desire to control steals our peace. Because life doesn't follow any one person's script. It's a web of interdependence where things arise, change, and fade in their own rhythm. The more we insist that things must go our way, the more disappointment we invite. The more tightly we cling to "it has to be this way," the more we suffer. The Buddha once said, "Letting go doesn't mean giving up everything. It means giving up attachment." Sometimes, when we stop and take a deep breath and look at what we've been trying so hard to control, we might realize it's not the situation that's hurting us, it's our resistance to it. There was a father who lost his job after 25 years. He fell into a dark place. Every morning he woke up bitter. asking, "Why me?" He couldn't bear staying home. He couldn't bear the feeling of being left behind. Until one day, sitting on his porch, watching the rain fall in the garden, he broke down in tears. No more anger. No more fighting. Just a conscious surrender. He started writing in a journal, cooking for his wife, calling old friends. He stopped trying to get back to who he was, and instead, he started living, not surviving, living. And when you stop resisting life, you'll notice you feel lighter. Not because life suddenly got easier, but because inside, you've made space for life to flow through. Not every path has to be cleared. Not every problem needs solving right now. Some things simply need to be let go, carried away by the wind. So if today you feel stuck, place your hand on your chest, take a deep breath, and ask, what am I trying to control that I actually can't? Maybe it's an apology that never came, a goal that hasn't happened, or a person who's no longer the same. Then ask, if I let that go, what would I really lose? And if I keep holding on, what am I already losing day by day? Just like the river, when we stop bracing against the current, when we stop clinging to what's trying to leave, when we allow life to carry us where we're meant to go, we're not giving up. We're not weak. We're becoming softer and deeper. Life is always shifting. And maybe the lesson we need isn't how to win against it, but how to live with it, like water flowing gently around every stone. Thank you so much for staying with me through this entire journey. We've touched on simple yet profound truths, from returning to the breath, to accepting what we can't control, from not rushing to label good or bad, to practicing compassion in small, daily ways. Each of these ideas, even if familiar, holds the power to open a quiet doorway within. A doorway to peace we don't have to chase or become someone else to find. In the end, it all comes down to something so simple. When the mind stops resisting life, we become lighter. Not because life becomes less heavy, but because we stop gripping it so tightly. Perhaps the spiritual path isn't about becoming greater. It's about returning to simplicity, mindfulness, and kindness to ourselves and to the world. If anything in today's reflection touched something in your heart, please consider subscribing to the Buddhism Seeds channel so we can keep exploring the deeper layers of the Dharma together. Don't forget to like, share this video with someone who might need it, and leave a comment below. How are you feeling? What part of this message made you pause, even for a second? We read every comment with a full heart, and we'll see you in the next video, where more seeds of mindfulness will be gently sown.